All right, you ready to go? Great. Let's begin then. This is your 11:15 a.m. media briefing. Today is Wednesday. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues, Alderman Peter Demong and Alderman Drew Farrell, who are with us today, the rest of City Council. Many of them, as always, are dialing into these briefings as they continue to work in their communities. I always start these briefings with good news. I'm afraid today I need to start with some bad news. And on that bad news, I'll invite Deputy Chief Roger Chaffins up to tell you about the results of the medical examiner's report that we've been waiting for.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. Just to recap, on Sunday, June 23rd, around 4:30 p.m., an 83-year-old woman was found deceased within her apartment in the 100 block of 25th Avenue Southwest. She was found by friends who had happened to return to check on her welfare. Our officers and the medical examiner both attended and determined at that time that the death was considered to be not suspicious. On Tuesday, June 25th, the autopsy was completed by the Office of the Medical Examiner, at which time the cause of death was determined to be that of an accidental drowning. Investigators have determined that the woman was first contacted by police in person on Thursday, June 20th, and informed of the mandatory evacuation order, and all indications at that time was the victim had intended to comply with that order. Our heartfelt condolences go out to her family, her friends, the neighbors, which is truly a very difficult time, I'm certain. And as a standard course of action, I know the question will come up, but we will not be releasing the identity of the victim, as this is certainly deemed to be accidental in nature. And I'll field any questions I can on that. So.
Where was the woman found? Sorry.
Within the apartment, so somewhere within her physical apartment she was found besides.
Did she drown in her apartment?
That's correct.
What was the condition of her apartment? Was it filled with water or?
Well, I don't have the exact nature of the condition, but my understanding is the apartment was ground level and it had taken on water from the floods.
So was there like a tripping that happened or?
I couldn't even speculate as to how she became overcome by the water, just to say that the victim was overcome by the water and the drowns.
Sure, was it ground level or basement?
If you see the building, it's a little bit of both. It's the way they're built, it's pretty much on ground, but probably a little bit below grades.
And why did police escort her out or provide some kind of way for her to get out of the apartment?
Well, as you remember at the time, we were certainly alarming the entire neighborhood of the need to evacuate, and I think if any indication at the time that she needed assistance to evacuate or needed some help, we certainly would have offered that, but at that time we believed she was complying and had no reason to believe that she wasn't able to do that on her own.
Do you believe she had any other health or mobility issues?
No indications of that.
All right, any further questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, and I will echo what the Chief said. Certainly this is a tragedy for the family, for the friends, for the neighbors of the woman who has passed away. It's a tragedy for all of us. It's a tragedy for our entire community, and I know that all of our hearts are with those family and friends today. So I do, however, have some good news. And we'll start, as we always do, with our flow rates. These numbers are looking very, very, very good. The Glenmore the elbow downstream of the Glenmore Dam, we're down to 60 cubic meters per second. That's actually normal for this time of year. I'm not going to say it's rafting weather because it isn't, but we're down to normal. The flow of the Elbow River is now being well controlled by the Glenmore Dam and by our colleagues who operate the Glenmore Dam. The Bow River below Bears Paw is still at 650 cubic meters per second. We're expected to hold that level. Again, the water flows are back under control, so we're controlling those through the dams. We're going to hold the Bow River with our colleagues at TransAlta at 650 cubic meters per second for the next 24 hours. That's the Alderman Hodges number. The Alderman Carraw number at the confluence then is 700 cubic meters per second. Just some context. 3 times normal. 3 times normal, about double what we had in 2005. It's still very, very, very fast. It's still very, very, very high. It's very, very, very dangerous. So all of those safety messages continue to apply. Stay away from the riverbanks. This morning I had pictures of significant erosion of a riverbank in the community of Montgomery. So that erosion is continuing to happen. You must stay away from the riverbanks. You must stay away from the pathways. If there's a pathway closed sign there, it's there for a reason, because we have not assessed the quality of the land underneath the pathway, or we have assessed it and found it to be dangerous. So we do not want anyone to be swept away on a pathway at the very end. Alberta Health Services has very useful information linked through calgary.ca for those who are doing cleanup, things about asbestos and mold and safety precautions. I've heard that many people are not wearing masks as they're doing the cleanup. These are things that are very important, and we need to do that. So please be very careful with all of that. Just some operational updates. Under the recommendation of Chief Burrell, the Director of the Calgary Emergency Management Agency, a state of local emergency will be extended for another 7 days. The state of local emergency was originally declared at 10:16 a.m. June 20th, 2013. It will remain effective through Thursday, July 4th, 2013. What that means is that we continue to have the ability to respond quickly and flexibly to the emergency. So we're still very much in a state of emergency. We've announced those community support centers in the neighborhoods. Those are the places to go if you have issues within your neighborhood and to access all city services. So they're staffed by people from city departments, including NMAX and ATCO. They're all there. So you no longer need to put the sign in your window saying need electricity, need power. Instead, go to the community service center in your neighborhood and let them know what the situation is, and we'll dispatch people as soon as we can. I'm going to be speaking more about this at the end, but volunteers. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this because, you know, cities love bureaucracies and centralized systems and so on. If you want to volunteer, go volunteer. Go to a flood-affected area. It's been amazing. I'll talk much more about it at the end, but people are just helping people. And you will find if you go to any flood-affected area that there are dozens of people just like you pitching in and helping neighbors, literally going door to door and saying, what can I do for you? It's really remarkable. If you got boots, wonderful. If you got gloves, wonderful. If you got tools, wonderful. Bring them. Bring bug spray, bring sunscreen. Show up ready to help. Now, I do have a couple of things. If you are going to a neighborhood, actually don't park in the neighborhood. Park on the outskirts of the neighborhood and walk in. We need to keep the streets clear because my colleagues in Waste and Recycling Services are going up and down the streets with garbage trucks, dumping things into the garbage trucks, and we need to keep those streets as clear as possible. And you know what? Don't be a looky-loo. If you're just there for sightseeing, get out of the way. We've got plenty of people who are there to help, and you can see lots of pictures on the internet. So if you're willing to go to those communities, if you can go to those communities, please do. I've got a lot more, but I know that people are very concerned about power at the moment. And I'd like to invite Gianna Manus, the CEO of NMAX, and her, on behalf of her amazing team and the work they're doing, to give you an update from the NMAX perspective. Gianna? I can bring your slides for you.
Okay, I think we've got some pictures for you today. I'm not quite as tall as you, so. Good afternoon. We have made quite a bit of progress in the last 24 hours since I was here yesterday. I have a lot of information to cover with you. We're trying to go neighborhood by neighborhood to give people as much information as possible. So let me go ahead and get started and walk through this information. As we stand right now, there are about 10,600 outages to report. Now these are meters, so it can be multiple meters in one location, or it can be by residence. So it affects a larger population than that, but about 10,600 outages to report. We have restored approximately 8,000 residences and customers since this time yesterday, since I last spoke with you. As we have been discussing, our system really is in two parts. We have an underground part of our system, which is in and around the downtown area, and I'll give you more specifics as to what that covers. And then we have what we call our distribution system, which is largely overhead, that goes more into the residential. In our distribution system, we have about 1,450 customers still out of service. You've heard us talk a lot about the challenges we've been having with our underground system because the water continues to come in and we continue to pump. So in that part of our system, we have about 9,000 customers out of service. So let me review for you the communities that we have restored. We have restored service to the following communities: Bowness, Hillhurst, Bridgeland, Britannia, Deer Run, Discovery Ridge, Douglasdale, Douglas Glen, Inglewood, Quarry Park, Queensland, Ramsey, River Bend, Stanley Park, Sunnyside, Westmount. Now, if you live in one of these communities that I have just named and you still do not have power at your house, there's a couple of things possibly going on. First of all, we need to check and see if there's water in your basement. You need to check and see if there's water in your basement. If there's water in your basement, that water has to be pumped out before we can restore service. As part of this restoration effort, the thing to keep in mind is the first thing we have to do, whether it's in a home or it's in our underground system, is that we first have to dry the equipment, so pump the water out, dry it, assess it, and inspect it to make sure that it is safe, and only then can we restore the power. If there is not water in your basement or in any part of your home, we could be having difficulties with the particular supply in your area of your neighborhood. Or your meter might have been socked, which means when the inspectors came by, they were either unable to assess because they couldn't get into your home, or there was some other issue. And if your meter has been socked, so if you look around and your neighbors in your area have power and you do not, here's what you need to do. You have 4 ways to get in contact with the city at this stage. Call 311 to request an inspection, go to calgary.ca, or go to the mobile app that you have, or go to the information center in your community. So let me go talk about those areas where we are still undergoing restoration. We've talked about the area north of the track. I'm going to start first in the downtown area. I'm starting with our underground part of our system. Instructions. Okay.
I'm used to it.
Okay, we're going to start
They're
with
gonna tell me what to do all the time.
We're going to start with the underground part of the system. This is the area you might have heard us refer to as the teens. It's part of our system that runs from Center Street and 2nd Street Southwest. It borders on the the south at the railroad tracks, north to the Bow River, Center Street to 2nd Street Southwest. That area, as we talked about yesterday, we've continued to pump. We continue to pump yesterday. It includes such buildings as the Bow and Suncor. We were able to restore that section of service back online yesterday, slightly ahead of schedule. We originally thought we would have it back on today. We were able to get that back online last night. So turning to the areas where we're continuing to have to pump and do restoration, I'm going to turn now to the east side of the city, the East Village area. And this is really the downtown area from the railroad tracks north to the Bow River, from Center Street east, generally. We continue to deal with a lot of water and silt in those areas. We have been pumping out of the vaults, the underground vaults there. Our major effort is to clear that area. We've continued the pumping operations. We have about 466 customers in that area, and at this stage we're continuing to pump and inspect, so I do not yet have an estimated time of restoration for that part of the city. Again, as soon as we have this information, we will feed it on through so people can continue to plan. Now, we've talked also a lot about the following communities I want to give specific information for: Beltline, Mission, Cliff Bungalow, and Victoria Park. These parts of our system are also connected. While residential, they are also connected to our underground system. So in many of these locations, people might not have had flooding in their particular area of their neighborhood, but again, they are part of the system that has gotten flooded, and until the entire system is dried, we have to dry it first, and then we can start restoration. But I've just been handed the note here that we now have an estimated restoration for Mission, Cliff Bungalow, Beltline, and Victoria Park. We are estimating we will have these back in service by 10 p.m. this evening.
Great. Wonderful.
Now, this continues to be a fluid situation as we've used that term. We're still inspecting these areas, but we're optimistic we'll be able to get in there. And again, we've got crews all over the place working on this. So 10 p.m. this evening, these are majority neighborhoods. Again, certain buildings in this area, because of the significant flooding in many of these parts of the city, may still have water in the basement, and those individual locations will not be able to have power to them until that pumping is done and it's dry. But the system itself in these areas will be re-energized, and areas that are clear and able to have electricity come into the homes, we will do so by this evening. So that's really good news.
Great.
And late breaking news.
Late
So,
break.
late breaking news. So let me go back now to, sorry, we've got new news, so I'm bringing all this together. Okay, so our overhead part of our system, I think I've covered all the areas that are covered by our underground system. So the neighborhoods of Roxborough, Rideau Park, and Earlton, we currently have crews, and the city has inspectors in those areas as we speak. What we are finding in these areas, again, there was significant flooding in these areas, and while this is largely our overhead system, we have some wires in this, particularly leading to the residences that are running underground. So water and damage in this area is slowing our progress a bit. Many of these homes in this area require inspections before we can actually turn the electricity on to those homes. So I do not yet have an estimated time of restoration for these locations, but as soon as we have that, we will get that through to you. Now, for those locations in those neighborhoods that I have not yet mentioned, those include parts of Elbow Park in particular. Again, these areas where we've had significant flooding, we've had a sizable amount of damage from what we can visually see at this point. I do not yet have an estimated time for restoration of these areas either, but as soon as we have that, it will be posted on calgary.ca. Also the link inmax.com/outages, and we are tweeting by individual neighborhood as we have information. So when we put a crew in, as we have an estimated time of restoration, we will start tweeting that information as soon as we know it so people can plan. So I'd like to just take a moment. I think that's a full update of the system. Continue to look at inmax.com/outages and look at the Twitter feeds for further information as we go. I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge a couple of things. We had crews out in neighborhoods throughout the night last night, and I'd really like to thank the city as well. Their Development and Buildings Approval Department had inspectors right alongside with us throughout the night into the hours of the morning, working with us to inspect premises at the same time we were checking our electrical system, and that has really enabled us to accelerate and make sure we're making progress with everyone. So thank the cooperation there. And I'd like to end on a good news story as well. We're talking about heroes here. This is another example of just the collaboration and the hard work that between SEMA and the INMAX crews. In the midst of all the restoration efforts, SEMA became aware of a senior residence house here in downtown Calgary that was significantly impacted, and it's a part of our system that we were struggling to bring back online because of the flooding. Now, due to mobility issues, the seniors in that location were unable to be evacuated, so they were in there. They had a backup generator, but unfortunately that backup generator failed. And INMAX and SEMA were made aware of the situation. The teams worked together to figure out how to help these people, and they stepped up together, and we've got a new full-size generator in place for this location, so these residents can continue to be safe inside this facility and have the things that they need and keep it running until we can restore that part of the city. So, you know, it's really situations like this where everyone comes together. And the final thing I'd just like to mention, Mayor Nenshi, before I turn it back to you, is I'd like to really thank the citizens of Calgary. I have to say the citizens of Calgary are amazing because they have been incredibly patient. We know you want your power back on. We want to get your power back on for you. We are going to work 24/7 until we get that power back on for you. But the patience and just the assistance that we have gotten from the citizens have really made so much difference, is allowed us to get into these homes and get our system restored much more quickly. So a heartfelt thanks, but we're going to be there until we get everybody back on.
Thanks, Jerry.
So we'd like to hold questions for INMAX.
Do you want to do them now?
No.
Questions for
We-
INMAX?
well-
Or you want to hold them? Oh, let's do it now while you're here, Jerry.
Okay, sure.
We won't hold.
Questions on power, if any?
Just out of curiosity, how many crews at an average time do you guys actually have on the ground?
We have about, I think we're up to 40. Yeah, we were running between 30 and 40 crews, and this is round the clock. We also have, again, we have about 30 people from EPCOR here. We've got 8 of those big vacuum trucks that they brought down in addition to our own. So round the clock, we're working in various parts of the city at the same time. Part of the coordination is not only our crews, but the building inspectors as well. So we're moving in teams through these neighborhoods. So that's one of the things that's enabled us to move through much more quickly once we've had the situation dry out.
And how many people are on a crew?
Oh, we've got 2 and 3 man crews, or 2 and 3 people crews, typically is what we've got.
Do you have an estimated time for when the downtown core will be up and running power-wise?
The downtown core, that is included, let me just make sure I give you the correct information. Did I skip over that?
T-grid is up.
T-grid, yeah, we've got that part up. We expect to have the rest, any other areas in the downtown, other than I mentioned the Beltline, we expect to have up by tomorrow, if there's any others. Now again, in many places, we have the system re-energized, but individual buildings may still be out because they have perhaps water in the basement, and those building owners have to get that water out, get that building inspected before power can actually be restored. So you may see blocks where there are still buildings that do not have electricity, and it's an isolated situation at that point.
And do you have an overall estimate for when you'll be able to restore total power for the city?
I think what we're dealing with in some cases is the power may be restored, but again, individual locations may not. What I'd like to do is just come back and get that information with you, and we can clarify it in a future briefing on that, on the overall restoration.
For the overall,
Yeah.
do you even know the overall re-energized, as you said?
Let me get back to you with that,
Okay.
okay? Our next briefing, or we'll get it shortly.
Sure.
We're getting close, though. We're getting
Yeah.
close. There will be isolated buildings where it will be days and days and days still, but we're getting close to the whole grid. So
One thing to just ask about getting close, I mentioned that we've got those areas of Beltline Mission, Cliff Bungalow, and Victoria Park. We've got about 9,000 customers in that underground section. The majority of those are in Beltline Mission, Cliff Bungalow, and Victoria Park. So we anticipate that by tomorrow morning's briefing, the total number of outages that are currently at 10,600 will be reduced significantly.
yeah. Thanks. Thank you very much, Gianna. When the board of directors of NMAX recommended hiring Gianna, we knew she was perfect for many, many reasons. Little did we know we would have to rely on her experience as an American who's worked a lot in Gulf Coast states with flooding and hurricanes, but I'm very glad that we've had that. So when she says that the citizens of Calgary are amazing, she comes by that honestly. She's dealt with lots. And by the way, is this not the most crazily photogenic crew of electrical workers that you've ever seen?
You don't want to smell them.
You don't want to smell them, says Gianna. Are these models? Are these real people? All right, roads. 85% of the road network in affected areas has now been restored, which is terrific. And 100% of the downtown core, how many lane kilometers would that be? Nearly 1,000 lane kilometers,
Just shy of that,
Justin?
Your Worship. Just shy of that, Your Worship.
Just shy of 1,000 lane kilometers has been swept at least once. It's amazing work. Director Justin, why does spring cleaning street sweeping take so long? No, I'm not going to ask you that. The 5th Avenue flyover is open to traffic. The 4th Avenue flyover is open to traffic. 25th Avenue east of McLeod Trail is open, but there is one lane, the right westbound lane, that is closed for road repair. Northbound and southbound McLeod Trail is fully open into the core as of 5:05 a.m. We're running transit-only lanes on McLeod Trail, which is kind of an interesting thing. They got those up right away, and I'm told from this morning that they're working really, really well. I was a bit surprised yesterday. I'm going to tell you a story of what I was doing last night. But one of the things that I did last night is I went out to see what was going on McLeod Trail. And I was a bit surprised that some nearby residents were saying, why in the world have you closed McLeod Trail? Why are you closing such a major road? Well, this is why. The road was gone. I don't know if people understand the extent of the damage to McLeod Trail. Kind of hard to drive on that. The road was gone. And so what we had, look at that. was a bunch of people trying to figure out how to fix this road. That's the Earlton Station right there, just north of 25th Avenue. This is what it looked like last night when I was there. And of course, oops, that's coming later. It's fully open. It's fully open to traffic. Folks, they built a new road in one day. They built a new road in one day. Yes, I did ask, why can't all city construction projects go that fast? The answer I got from one particularly smart colleague on the ground was public consultation, which made me laugh. But I don't think that part is quite true. And when I said to these guys, when I was with them last night, you built a road in one day? They said, sir, to be clear, we built 3 roads in one day. 25th Avenue, this stretch of McLeod, and another stretch of McLeod. Amazing, amazing work from our colleagues in roads. And just creative, just to share, creative, innovative thinking too. There was a challenge under the road with the ducts that carry fiber for companies like Shaw and Telus. And we had to repair the ducts before you could build the road. And so their thought was, well, I was going to use a word that I shouldn't use again. Forget about the ducts for now, build the road on top, and then once the city is back to normal, tear up the road again and fix the ducts, because by some miracle the fiber wasn't ruptured. It was still going through, but it was twisted and crazy everywhere. And a very, very smart young project engineer put up his hand. I love it when my colleagues at the city do stuff like this, and said, I have a better idea. Let's build a new road. Let's move the lanes we're missing into the median of the road. We've got enough space there. We'll leave the ducts exposed, so while the road is already built, people can work on fixing the ducts. Brilliant. Brilliant, and that is where we ended up. So that's great news, and I'm sure commuters were very happy. That said, don't go there. It really is open only for local traffic, and so I really want to say once again, don't go downtown. Let's make Canada Day the first day that Calgary comes back downtown. Unless you absolutely have to be there, we are, don't go. We are in no means back to normal. If you don't need to be downtown, stay away. Let the building owners and the building operators and the emergency crews a chance to do their assessment and remediation work. You can't do it if downtown is gridlocked. They can't get from building to building to do those assessments. And remember, many, many parkades are flooded. Many, many parkades are still unavailable. It's going to be early next week before it feels like life like normal down there. So it is quite urgent. I'm really reaching out to employers and saying, if people can work from home, let them work from home. And that's not just downtown, that's across the whole city. I got one employer today saying, I'm sick of my employees calling and using Mayor Nenshi as an excuse not to come to work. And my response to her was, if they're not essential, if they can do their job from home, let them. If we can reduce congestion throughout the city, that would be a very, very, very good thing. And if you must go downtown, you should only think about going downtown one of 3 ways: walk, bike, or transit. Let's clear up the gridlock and make that whole thing work a little bit better. All right, what else have we got here? 65 traffic signals in the inner city have been restored since the crisis. I was there at the Roads Operations Center last night, and the coolest thing ever was they had a live map, and 4 lights turned green while we were standing there. In other words, those traffic signals were restored. So they're working hard on that. 65 signals have been restored since the crisis. 35 remain without power and are in the process of being restored. Treat those, of course, as 4-way stops. We still have some bridge closures. Shoaldice Bridge is closed to the public, restricted access for transit only. Center Street Bridge, lower deck is still closed, upper deck is open. Langevin Bridge at the bottom of Edmonton Trail is still closed. St. George's Bridge at 12th Street is still closed, and the Baines Bridge to the Zoo Road is still closed for restricted access. On the Elbow River, the McDonald Bridge is closed to the public, transit may use it. 9th Avenue Southeast Bridge from Inglewood closed to the public, transit may use it. That particular one, we may have to wait a little while to give you an announcement, maybe in the next day or 2. 25th Avenue Bridge over the Elbow River, as you know, is the bridge that sustained the most damage anywhere in the city. There's major road work underway on that bridge. That won't be open probably at least for a week. Our colleagues in transit are doing fantastic. We still don't have a final date on the opening of the 7th South Red Line, the Red Line from Heritage Station to downtown. But while I was out there last night, I got to see a bit of it, and man, that work is proceeding quickly. So I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to get back there. Taxes. Every politician's favorite thing to talk about. As you know, property tax bills were mailed on May 24th. and they are due on June the 28th. They're due on Friday. I'm trying to decide if I should be political for a moment. I'll be political for a moment. This amazing response you've seen from your public service folks, this is why we pay taxes. And it is remarkable that we've been able to do all of this. Now, of course, building access and road access to downtown is improving hour by hour, but we're no means back to normal. It's difficult to get to the municipal building. It's not difficult, impossible to get to the municipal building. And a small portion of people do like to pay their taxes in person. So there are a number of ways to pay your property taxes. You can pay them at any bank. You can pay them through any ATM. You can pay them online. And we have now opened 4 temporary customer service counters from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day in each quadrant of the city. Rose Con Arena in the southwest, the elections office in the northeast off of Deerfoot Trail, Forest Lawn in the southeast, and the Georgina Thompson library location in the northwest. Specific addresses can be found online. You may use cash, check, or debit at these customer service centers to pay your property taxes. You may not use credit cards. You can also send your property taxes by mail, Canada Post, or apply online for the tax installment property plan known as TIP at calgary.ca. And for the interest of the media in the room, I will be visiting the Rose Con Service Center to take a look at the services they have offered this afternoon between 1 and 1:30, and I will be paying my property taxes at that point. I will tell you, however, talk about burying the lead, that I understand that a lot of people have way more important things on their mind than their property taxes right at this moment. People are worried about getting back into their homes, addressing their damage, supporting our friends and family. So while I don't have the power to do it, even under a local state of emergency, I will be going to council, and I know they will all agree with me, and asking council to waive the penalty charge for any late payment of property taxes, residential property taxes only, that are paid between June 28th and July 12th, 2013. So in short, for your residential property taxes, you've got a 2-week grace period where we will waive any penalties, and if we need more time, we'll give you more time, but let's see how we do getting ourselves up in those 2 weeks. Again, I don't really have the power to do that, and I'm looking at 2 council colleagues in the room, and I'm sure neither of them are going to object. Of course not. That's the right thing to do. So we will continue to do that, and we'll move from there. All right, I'm going to give you a little more detail on community cleanup, and I'm going to give you some of the technical stuff on community cleanup before I tell you a little more about what's really happening on the ground. We're reminding Calgarians and communities that are affected by the floods to keep the streets clear for flood recovery work. Limit any on-street parking. Even if you live there, park in the back lane or get off the street as best you can, so that we can ensure access for vehicles like ambulances, fire trucks, waste collection vehicles, and pumper trucks in all neighborhoods. Again, if you're going to help out, please park on the outskirts of the community and walk in. Remember that city and NMAX crews require 6 meters or 18 feet of clearance on residential streets. Beginning today, we're towing. I love this term. We're courtesy towing. Do you love this? Courtesy towing at no charge to the vehicle owner. Aren't we nice people? What we really are doing is if we need access to the street, we're just going to tow your car around the corner. No big deal. But if you can't find your car, and I don't mean if you can't find your car after a late night at the Stampede, if you can't find your car on your neighborhood, just call the Calgary Parking Authority and they'll tell you where it is. But it should be relatively easy to find. We're just taking things around the corner if needed. If you are planning an organized community cleanup, if you're saying, hey, everybody from the office, or hey, all my neighbors, let's go to this neighborhood, please consider a mustering or staging point at a park or a parking lot on the outskirts of the neighborhood, and then you can organize people and send them out into the neighborhood instead of doing it on the street. And we can help you find those locations. They can certainly help you at the community service centers in each neighborhood do that. If you're volunteering in a flood-affected community, please plan to carpool, take transit, or walk, again, or park at a distance. And effective immediately, I think I said this already, you can park in the rear lane and you will never get a ticket for doing that. Now, I do want to say that we are working hard to help everyone but no one would blame us for having a special look towards our most vulnerable citizens. And certainly my colleagues at the city have been working very, very hard to try and get seniors back into seniors' homes and other folks back into their homes. So good news is Baker House, In from the Cold, Mustard Seed, Louise Station are all done except for AHS. Inspections and occupancy is pending. And in particular, I want to announce that the drop-in center, we should have occupancy late today or tomorrow based on their residency. We're opening that one under generator power so that those folks have somewhere to be. So last night, I've gotten into a bit of a habit over the last few days, which is if I have a little bit of breathing time in the evening, I have been going around talking to my city colleagues and thanking them around the city for the work they're doing, which is how I ended up with these folks on the Cloud Trail as well as many others. The other thing I've been doing is just very quietly, not telling anyone I'm coming, but just very quietly going into some of the flood affected areas and seeing how I can offer support. So yesterday, we finished with these folks on the Cloud Trail and took a little drive in the Mission area. And as we were walking, I saw these very, very, very filthy women. Hold your pun. These very filthy women taking a photo on the street. So I did what I do. I jumped out of the car and photobombed their picture. And I asked them their story. And they said that they were off work. Well, one of them took the day off. A couple of them couldn't go to work. A couple of them had the day off anyway. And this isn't the photo I wanted to show you. There was another one, and I apologize. But they were off work, and they just came down. They came down to the neighborhood and found someone to help, and found a place to help. And what the photo I wanted to show you had the homeowner who had been affected, who they spent the whole day cleaning out. They didn't know her. And as well as the neighbor of hers who had been putting her up and looking after her needs. So I was pretty overwhelmed that people would do this. They were filthy. One of them, you might be able to see, had a giant gash on her knee. I told her to go to, I said, the Schumer Center is reopened, go get a tetanus shot. And I was really overwhelmed. I was kind of moved to tears by what they were doing. And they looked at me kind of funny. And they said, why do you think what we're doing is special? Go 2 blocks down the street. So I did. I went 2 blocks down the street and I went to 4th Street in the community of Rideau. On that one block, little houses, century houses, 600, 700 square foot homes. On that one block, I would conservatively say there were 200 people. 200 people dumping stuff on the lawn. There was one of my colleagues in a recycling truck coming up the lawn, and he would stop in front of somebody's house, and a swarm of people would go to that house and start throwing stuff into the truck. When the truck moved on, they'd go to the next one. And I asked people, do you live here? No, I've never been to this community in my life. I'm from Forest Lawn. I'm from Springbank Hill. I'm from Sinalta. We're dry. We just came. One group of people, giant group of people, literally standing on a mountain of things that was taller than the little house. And I said, who lives here? One woman put up her hand and I said, do you know these people? And she said, I know most of them because I put out a thing on Facebook saying we need help. And all my friends and my friends' friends came. But all those other guys I don't even know. They just showed up. I met this guy. His name is Stan Price. Stan's one of those guys who within a minute of talking to him, you know the type. He spends his time driving the Zamboni at the community ice rink. He's the mayor of his street. He looks after his neighbors. He said, you can't see behind him, but he made a plywood sign. He had his house cleaned up pretty quick. He's a pretty handy guy. So he made a plywood sign and it says, volunteers needed. Volunteer center. He missed the end. He was in a rush. And he just said, I just put this plywood sign up here so that all the volunteers coming on my street could just come see me, and I'd say, Jane up the street needs help. George down there is on holiday. Can you give him a hand? And so on. You see that table behind him? His front lawn is filled with food and bottles of water that people had come into the community and dropped off. He dispatched hundreds of people to his neighbor's house that day. And don't forget, these neighbors are in a lot of trouble. This is Steve's basement. This was Steve's basement before. It's a great basement in a 100-year-old house. You can't really see the sectional in the corner. It's a nice sectional. He scrimped and saved for that. He said it took him 18 months to get it custom made and ordered for that space. This is what it looked like yesterday. People have lost a lot. Our friends and neighbors are in an enormous amount of pain. You know what? We're there to help them. I met Sam yesterday. Sam is a student at William Reed Elementary School. His school parent council has organized all of the parents at that school to help their neighbors who are affected by the flood. All the volunteers at Sam's house yesterday got hot shepherd's pie for dinner. Some of Sam's buddies were taking Sam away on play dates so he wouldn't have to be around. And they're all looking after one another. That's the work they did at Sam's house. And Sam, he needed a little bit of help with the spelling, but he wanted to put up a little sign. And along with his parents, Lori and Jeff, they speak for all of us as citizens. We as citizens have the power to take people from devastation to hope. So to Sam, and to Lori, and to Jeff, and to the 100,000 of their neighbors just like them, we're here for you. Public servants are here for you, your neighbors are here for you, and we'll continue to look after you. Questions?
So as you can appreciate, the mayor's time is quite tight, so we're going to have time for 3 questions from the mayor. However, we have a number of the directors and general managers here who will be available to answer operational questions around roads, water, transit, waste and recycling. So if you're strictly operational questions, save them for them. Jerry.
Can you tell us a bit about the city projects that are being on hold because of all of this devastation?
So the question was, can you tell us a little bit about the city projects that are on hold because of the devastation?
Thanks for repeating it, Rob. People keep telling me you have to repeat the question. We can't see it on TV or on the live stream, and I keep forgetting. We're all hands on deck for, especially in things like construction projects, for getting this work done. There are a few urgent things that we need to get done without long costs. So for example, Crowchild Trail Northwest, well out of the flood zone this weekend. We will have closures on Crowchild Trail Northwest this weekend to install the pedestrian bridges for the new Tuscany station. So there's some things that contractors and city staff are continuing to work with, but most people, all hands are on deck. I don't have a full list of stuff on hold. We've just been working, but we can come up with that.
Can you give us an idea of this summer what is off the books?
The question was, can you give us an idea of what's off the books this summer? I don't know the answer to that yet, just because it's not clear how much we're going to have to be reallocating people. So for example, of course we took the people off the Tuscany LRT station doing the track work to fix the south tracks. But if they're done in a week or two, they can go back to Tuscany since they're experts in doing tracks. So we'll figure it out as we go along.
Can you just expand on what does the extended state of local emergency would mean in practical terms for Calgarians?
I'm not sure what it means in practical terms for Calgarians, except we're on it and we're fixing stuff. There's a number of operational things it means, and I keep saying it means that, all that conversation I've been having about a city charter and the powers that cities should have? Yeah, we have all those right now. We have a lot of delegated authority, and Chief Burrow keeps reminding me it's not me who has the delegated authority, it's him who has the delegated authority, and I keep reminding him he reports to me.
We're doing a great
But,
job. I said we're doing a great job, Sherry.
We really are. There's a bunch of technical things in there about our rights and powers. We can spend money without necessarily needing council authorization to spend the money. Council has to authorize it post facto, but we can conscript resources as needed. So simple example, let's say that we are seeing a situation where there's an urgent need to reinforce a fence. We can go to the Home Depot and steal their fence and use it to reinforce the fence without asking. Now the Home Depot would probably say yes anyway, but little things like that. And it just gives us flexibility and the ability to adjust to the emergency as best we can.
Final question, Kelly.
Just wondering about small businesses and what's being done to help them. It seems after these situations, they can go under.
So there's 2 things I'm really quite worried about right now in terms of financial remediation. For homeowners, the province and the federal government have announced that they'll be there for them and they'll take them at their word on that. I am concerned about employees who are kind of hourly employees who are missing shifts because they can't get to work, and I am concerned about small business. So I'm really reaching out to employers to be as generous as possible with their employees. For a lot of people, missing a week's wages means not being able to pay the rent. And we need to figure out how to do that. And for small business, I don't have a financial answer for you, I wish I could. What we're doing is working hard to let them reopen as quickly as possible. But I know the Calgary Chamber of Commerce is doing a ton of work to assist small business, and I encourage small businesses to visit calgarychamber.com in order to learn more about that.
Okay, Kelly, one final
At
question.
this point, do you know how many thousands of houses have been damaged?
I don't know that we're going to know that number for a long time, because it really does rely on people self-reporting the extent of their damage. I can only be anecdotal. And I know that in some areas there are vast swaths of homes that have escaped any damage at all. Alderman Farrell is back in her home after being evacuated. You didn't have any water in your basement, did you? But streets like 4th Street that I went to, every single home is going to need 6-figure restoration. Chief, do you have any real numbers for us?
No, Your Worship, I'm trying to get you moving because you should have left 6 minutes ago.
He's got all the power and authority. Chief will answer any other questions. Thank you all.
So we have Chief Burrell, we have the Director of Water Services, the Director of Roads, the Director of Transit, Director of Waste and Recycling Services, and a couple of our general managers. Eric Sawyer, the Chief Financial Officer. So any other questions?
Just
Yes.
wondering, is there an actual ban in Bowness? We've been getting a lot of emails, a water ban, from people saying that you can't use the water at all in the Bowness area, and that water's been restricted, you can't do laundry, you can't do all this stuff. We've been getting tons of emails about it.
Now, there is a level 4 water restriction in place for the entire city of Calgary. We're asking people to cooperate with that, but I'll have Director Lemmiker address that further.
Thank you for the question. As Director Burrell mentioned, there still is the water restrictions that we have in place, which essentially relates to no outdoor water use. And that, citizens have cooperated greatly with that, and that is actually helping our plants, going back to the crop yesterday, that's helping our plants go from this to this, which is great. So indeed, there is, outside that water use restriction, there's no ban on water use except
Okay.
for that.
So it's just misinformation and that people are getting?
That's correct.
Okay. I also have a question for waste and recycling. I'm just wondering what's happening with garbage pickup. If we're talking to private contractors, how many people we have on the streets? Is there worries about, all this garbage lying around, obviously?
Dave Griffiths, Waste and Recycling Service. General questions about what's happening with waste collection across the city. We are maintaining block cart collection through all of our neighborhoods who have not been impacted by the flooding. We have curtailed blue cart collection until further notice, because those crews and staff are helping us redeploy. We're running double shifting in the flood affected communities so they can help bolster the staffing we have on, as the Mayor mentioned, we have roving collection garbage trucks going dedicated only to those neighborhoods, and it's through that blue card staffing that we're able to double up our shifts on that, going through the communities. We have over 30 very high capacity garbage packing units going or split between all of those communities, and we're working on some more plans to intensify more machinery. Residents are finding throughout the areas other service providers, and that's tremendous, because we are also have gone to the garbage collection suppliers to see if they can help us through the downtown, through all those, but mostly focusing on the residential communities from our end of it. So that's.
Can you just talk briefly about the concerns, obviously, with having this amount of garbage that's been in sewage or other things lying out on the road?
So that's exactly why we're trying to speed this up. We're going to take it up to different stages, and we're figuring out just what other equipment and machinery really helps us with that. As I mentioned, or as was mentioned, the parking in these areas, we absolutely knew that residents would immediately, that they got the all clear to go back to those communities, would go back, they had to. And so they had to access those communities by their vehicles. Volunteers came to help, they're parked in all those streets, and we're going to figure out now how to deal better with that and add a little more might to it coming up.
And can you speak to junk cars that need to actually be towed away for good, not just left on the streets?
Where that issue, it's not a priority at this point in time. Just for the information of the media, just before coming up here, I've authorized the opening of the pandemic supply in the city of Calgary. We'll be using the gloves, goggles, and respiratory protection masks out of the pandemic supply. We did have some being distributed yesterday by Red Cross to people that are working on houses. These will go to the community centers where we're supplying other resources, and they should be on their way shortly.
We just want to stress that that's purely a precautionary safety measure. There's no pandemic fear. It's just where, that's the supply
That's where we
that's
have
coming out
hundreds of
of.
thousands of them stored, so
Sorry, that's for public access?
that will be for public access, yes.
How will you hand them out?
Through the community, with CSCs, we're calling them,
Community support centers.
support centers.
So those ones that we designated
So the
yesterday as
nine-
being placed in
Nine
the
community
communities,
support centers?
they'll just be resources that are available to the public there.
I could add to the question as well. Some of the other things in the background is, I can't say enough about our staff on our landfill sites. All 3 landfill sites we've been able to maintain continuously through this. They've all remained open. They're 7 days a week. We've extended their hours of operation from 7:30 till 9 o'clock every day. And anybody, even our commercial service providers, if they can indicate to us that they're dealing with flood damaged materials and they're bringing them to our sites, there are no charges to bring that material into our landfills. We're finding people themselves have some abilities to get them to our landfills themselves. We are asking other customers if they're just bringing general, prunings and that from their own communities that aren't in the damaged areas, please avoid our sites right now so that we can manage our traffic needs through that area. We're also trying to segregate some of those materials and prepare different pads so that we don't have to landfill everything at the end, such as large metal objects and that sort of thing, some of the debris in that. But that's a very important element for us, and that's been, it's just one other tool in our toolkit of letting people access their disposal needs.
Any other questions for anybody?
For the chief, I'm just wondering, is there a clearer answer on how many thousands of homes have been affected by this at this point?
I don't have a clear answer. The question was about how many homes. I do not have a clear answer. Assessment teams have been in the worst communities overnight. We have them as red dots on the map. We just haven't compiled the number yet. So maybe for the next media briefing, if you'd like it, we can certainly compile it for you. We just have not stopped to take the time to actually count them.
Can I ask a question about riverbank erosion? I'm not sure, Chief, if this is for you, or I'd like to get an idea of the extent of the damage and how dangerous it is and what's being done about it.
Okay, Ryan?
Sure.
So the question was about the extent of the riverbank erosion and what the danger might be from that.
Sure, Ryan Justin, Director of Roads. Yeah, there's really 2 or 3 pretty key areas. They're both, 2 of the prime ones are along Memorial. Obviously, one is just here on 19th Avenue, and the other one is just down here by the curling club. Sorry, for those that aren't here, it's right along Memorial, just west of Center Street. And those ones have significant erosion. Those banks are extremely saturated. So we've been working really tirelessly since the water crested on Saturday morning. We've been working tirelessly to restore those banks. The key thing is that they are undercutting the roads. And so, as you know, we've only got westbound Memorial Drive currently open, and I expect that it's going to stay that way. We're working on a bit of a lane change so we can get some eastbound traffic onto Memorial, but our best estimate is probably 3 days before we can get that bank back to what I would call normal state to allow us to put traffic, even people walking, on top of it. That's the state of the erosion. It's significant down there for sure.
Are homes in danger in residential areas?
Absolutely not. No, not in those areas. This is right just along the roadway. I'm sorry, there may be other areas. So clearly, the third area is the area just down in Inglewood, off of 8th Avenue, the 2200 block, and that area we came very close to having it right up to houses. But fortunately, the road in front of it actually prevented it from getting up to the houses. So all of those residents down there in Inglewood have been accessing their homes through the back lane. But at this point, there's no further danger. We've stabilized that that bank down there, and I don't think there's any danger from further erosion, not in that area, that's for sure not. So, and you know, really, we have a really good we have a really good handle on all of those erosion areas, and at this point, they're all being contained. There's no houses that are in any danger of being lost as a result of this.